Hi, Jen.
Hi, Elle.
How's it going, cutie?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I mean, I'm good, but I'm struggling on this lovely, gloomy Monday that we're having.
I feel that. It's been a weird day.
It has been a weird day.
Yeah.
You've been traveling.
Yeah, and right before we started filming, okay, I'm going to give a story time.
Buckle up.
I live in Superior, so I have to drive across the bridge to get to Duluth to see Al and to make this podcast for you guys. So you're welcome, by the way. On my drive today, I decided to open a sparkling water while I was at a stop sign, and like one of the flavored ones, you know, that kind of probably have a little bit of food coloring in there, all over my fucking khakis.
Just slight red dye on
Just
the khakis
slight
today.
Pink tie-dye khakis.
It's
a
actually
new
dried
trend.
really nice right now.
Yeah.
You can barely tell. No, I really mean that.
Yeah, you're right. I know it's there.
Yeah, but who else? I was telling Jen because she was like, what am I going to do trying to walk into my apartment building later? And I said, listen, if anybody gives you a hard time, first you call me, then I come over, I drive there, and I say, hey, why are you picking on my friend? You want to tell me that you've never spilt on your pants before?
Mhm.
Lies. There are two people in this world, Jen. People who have spilt on their pants
Uh-huh.
and liars.
Oh.
Two people.
I like what you did there. That was really funny.
Thanks. It just felt needed to say.
Yeah, I appreciate
Because
you.
I'm calling them out.
Yeah, you're always standing up for me.
But we have a really good episode today. We say that every week, but I do feel like this one is going to be a hot take because some people are very much for this and very much against. I would say I'm neutral. I'm indifferent.
Yeah.
What are we talking about today?
We are talking about artificial intelligence, otherwise known as AI.
Woo woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, them robots sneaking into our lives more and more every day.
Those slippery little snakes.
Those slippery little snakes.
With that being said, I'm going to give you, I don't know what you say every time you do it, a juicy, loosey, oosey, goosey disclaimer. People.
Yeah, baby. That sounded so good.
Yeah, I know my shit. Okay, disclaimer. This is my opinion. This is Alex's opinion. None of it is really fact-based. It's going to be experiential-based. And we're going to talk about things we've lived through, things we've noticed in the community, trends with AI, but I will not be citing anything. This is specifically my opinion, so if you have an issue, goodbye, baby.
If you got an issue, here's a tissue.
Oh,
See ya.
We should trademark that.
We should. I don't think we can because it has to have been said by somebody before.
Yeah, probably.
But we can look into it.
Yeah.
We can have our lawyers do their thing.
Right when we sign up for Bitcoin.
Oh.
Anyways, moving on.
Bitcoin is the bane of my existence right now because of how little it makes sense. Oh, I will say this. Over the weekend, I listened to the episode with my parents in the car.
Uh-huh.
And Greg, the other co-owner of Poppin' Dot, my dad, would pause it every once in a while and be like, you know, I agree. I don't get what it is either. So
Thank you, Greg.
everybody, the men are chiming in.
Yeah.
And I want to hear the men who think that they know what it is listen to the definitions that we shared and then tell me they still believe in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But cool. Thank you for the disclaimer.
Absolutely.
Are you ready to hop on in?
Dude, I am just so ready.
Oh, I love that.
Let's do it.
Your want to get into this topic is filling me. It's fueling me.
Wow.
Here I go. So, honestly, I have not really worried about AI since Adobe first rolled out the red carpet for it in 2023. That is my perception of it. And then when I went to go look and fact check myself, I actually saw that Adobe started introducing AI in the fall of 2016 when the company announced its Sensei AI platform, which is devoted to artists and designers by providing AI-empowered creation tools. And I literally had no idea.
No, same. That's like, I started using Adobe products, which for people who don't know, that's like the programs we have to use for designing. There's not really a whole lot of anything else. But I started using those programs in 2015. I had no idea.
No, they weren't doing a very good job. And maybe it was just so new
Yeah.
that they didn't know, maybe they didn't trust it yet and they didn't really want to roll it out like they have in the last year or so.
I think there's a high probability of that for sure.
I first learned about it when they came out with the AI generation tool or the generative fill in Photoshop.
Same.
I think they have it in Illustrator too, but
I don't know.
Nonetheless, I digress. So have I played around with the features in my programs? Yes. I will say for quick projects or previews that don't need to be polished and can allow a few visual mistakes, I will use the AI generating tool on Adobe Photoshop. I feel like if I don't want to take the time, I'll select an area and be like, fill this in with white curtains from ceiling to floor. So what is generative fill for the people that don't know? It's an AI tool powered by Adobe Firefly that enables you to add and remove content from images non-destructively using simple text prompts to achieve realistic results. And I believe that the more detailed you are when requesting their assistance, the more accurate the outcome can be.
I would agree.
Yet I still think that there is obviously some wiggle room of things that can be very distorted. Yeah. So when you type in your prompt, you say generate, can be whatever you want to be like. You can also remove the background or like remove certain aspects. And I really like that portion of it when it works. It's like 50-50 for me sometimes.
I would agree with that.
But they do give you 3 options to toggle through. So you can kind of choose which one works best for your layout. This is super hit or miss. And that's just my experience, I guess. But that's kind of the extent about my personal use with AI. Like, do you use that quite a bit when you're designing?
I have a little bit of experience with AI. I wouldn't say I use it a ton. There's one that I've used a little bit, and honestly, it's more for just like idea generation on Adobe Illustrator. I forget what it's called, but it's like it's text to image or prompt to image or something like that. Basically kind of what you were describing with the generative fill, but you type in a prompt like, let's say, person wearing a red flannel, okay?
Oh.
You can be as specific as you want or unspecific, and you hit generate, and it'll give you a vector image.
Oh.
So basically a scalable image. I haven't
used that yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've done it like once in my work at UWS just to kind of play around with it. I think I did like stack of college textbooks or something. And you can obviously like play with the amount of detail, or like basically you can make it really vague or extremely detailed. You can just kind of toggle between the options. I think it gives you 3 options as well. It's interesting.
When you say give me a person wearing a red flannel, like would it give you, because sometimes when I search for free like vector images online, it'll always give me like cartoon or illustrated. That's what it's going to give you.
That's
right?
exactly what it's going to give. Yeah, it doesn't give you like, it's not like the really fancy ones that you see on TikTok of people like making a painting or whatever.
Right. Yeah, it's not like Procreate or Fresco.
Yeah, I think that's what it's called.
The ones that are on the iPad where you can get quite detailed with them. But that's good to know, because I feel like because it is still so new and it's very controversial. Like when Adobe did their big rollout this last year, all designers were talking about like, oh, are they coming for our jobs? Like this and that. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more. But I do want to say that's the extent of, my use with work. But for personal AI, I do not use the AI bots on Snapchat or the other AI assistant with other brands or electronics. I don't know why. I just don't see the point, because it comes off a little lazy to me. Also, I think of Smart House on Disney, the movie that came out where basically this house was a robot herself.
A smart house.
And that scares me. The fact that we actually went through with it and made it a real thing. What are we doing?
I would agree.
Did nobody see the end to that movie? She went berserk. She literally went crazy. So that's why I don't do that. But with that being said, I do have an Amazon Alexa. And I love her. She's in my bedroom. She really is. Here's the thing. I may be being a little extra with her, but I tell her thank you. I tell her to thank my Amazon driver.
Yes.
I am super kind. I say please, because when she decides to take over the world with the rest of her AI robot friends,
literally.
I'm not going to be the first victim.
I was just going to say that. You got to treat it nicely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when the intelligence becomes a little bit too intelligent, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, that thing is going to come to get us. And if you're nice to it, it's going to keep you in mind and not kill you.
Yeah, it might actually, like, a bunch of robots could be like, let's get her. And then my robot stands in front of them and she's like, no, you guys. She's one of the good ones.
Alex is a cool one.
Yeah.
She thanked me every single time.
I'm pardoned. And then I can continue living in harmony with the rest of the robots.
Yeah.
That's the future that I foresee. So.
You got to write a book about that.
I do. I use her for very few things. She really is the best. She turns my TV off for me, lets me know what the weather is for the day in Duluth or anywhere else. If I'm curious, I'd be like,
shit.
Hey, Alexa, what's the weather in Sicily, Italy? She'll tell me. But there are some times when I ask her a question that I feel like is pretty specific and she says that she can't find anything on it. That kind of chaps my ass a little bit. But it's okay. Because you know what? Robots also have off days.
That is so true.
I want to be inclusive to the robots.
Yeah.
It's okay. Take a day off. I'll turn the TV off this time.
They have 4-day work weeks.
They do.
Yeah.
No, she's a 7-dayer. She works 24/7. She's probably trying to like keep the fort, hold the fort down when I'm gone.
You got to give that girl a raise.
I dust her.
Okay.
I don't let her get dusty.
I'll count that.
Okay,
it's like
cool.
taking care of a child.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she's got me, and maybe I'm just a little too loyal to have her venture off into another AI relationship. I'm not ready for a new Amazon Fire Cube. That's exactly what I have with Alexa.
Yeah.
But I will bring the conversation back to AI and how it could potentially ruin the professional career for graphic designers. And I think that's a bunch of hoopla. When that started coming out, I could see, because it was trending, that a lot of people were joining in on the conversation. However, I just really don't think that you could ever replace like the human touch that people have on things. But a couple weeks ago, we talked about, or maybe it was 3 weeks ago now, but we had talked about like staying original and how there really aren't a lot of original ideas. I feel like that is maybe where the slippery slope of AI and borrowing people's ideas, why that can be such a negative thing.
Yeah.
Because I think that it takes the work away from like what we're doing, and anybody, like, there is a chance that somebody could type in the exact same prompt and then you will get the same thing. Like,
right.
I'm sure that's going to happen. If it's not an original idea of yours, like, that is a potential hazard. So that's the only thing that I think is kind of be dangerous. So for so long, people have been introducing quick fix apps and programs for designers and non-designers to use, and we've grown closer to never having a human, individual, unique touch on designs, which is really sad. I don't care if it takes me longer. I do want to control the outcome of my work. I want to be proud of it and know that that was all me. For the most part, I was also talking with my uncle over the weekend, who used to do illustrations, but he actually just designs PowerPoints now for big companies. And he's done that for the last 20 or so years. But he did say, like, there will never be an original idea again. Quite literally never, because you have to go to some resource to start your research for any project. And I can understand where maybe AI assisting in the creation of your idea, but I don't agree with AI being the driving force of the idea itself, if that makes sense. So I don't know, that may be a little controversial in itself, but yeah, I don't know if you'll touch on this a little bit later, kind of how that was as designers and how it kind of turned our world upside down for a little bit, at least with the camaraderie in the community, because I feel like people were very on one side or the other, like, no, it's really good, and others are like, no, they're going to take our jobs, like, because you think about clients too who use logo generators, Canva. I mean, in a way it is like another AI. it's just another form that's taking away business from us. But if we just keep our head down and keep moving forward, people will start to see why there is just like vast pros to hiring a human designer rather than leaning towards AI.
I agree with that completely. And I will touch on that a little bit more in a little bit.
Okay.
But I think the whole like, oh, this is going to take our job conversation is stupid. It's never going to take away the job of an artist. They can sure as hell try, but I agree with you. The whole human touch, human element, added human emotion into a design is something a computer can never do.
Can never. She
ever.
could never dream of doing that.
No.
And, you know, if you can, then the robot's reading my brain. And at that point, it's all downhill from here.
We're done.
If we get to that point.
Alexa turned against you.
She won't. She can't.
We'll see one day.
I guess so. I will say that after I typed all of my notes for today's episode, I did get an email from Google that it came through around 12:30 today announcing new changes to their terms and conditions. And what do you know? They have a clause on AI.
Oh.
So I'm going to read it to you guys.
Yeah, that's interesting.
This is labeled Generative AI Additional Terms of Service. To use the Google services that reference these terms, you must accept the Google Terms of Service and these Generative AI Additional Terms of Service. So there's age requirements, user restrictions, and disclaimers. Let me see here.
A juicy, loosey, oosey, goosey disclaimer?
Yeah, I don't know if it says juicy, loosey, oosey as ours, but it's a disclaimer nonetheless. Yeah. Oh, okay. It's in the disclaimers. That's what kind of struck me. Okay. The services may sometimes provide inaccurate or offensive content that doesn't represent Google's views because you're using AI generator or like an AI generative search. So that is kind of the dangerous thing is you're basically saying, hey, look for this. And it could bring up very inappropriate things because the AI generator didn't compute exactly what you needed it to be.
I feel like that is a very smart clause for them to save their asses.
But it does make me wonder exactly why and how it led to including that clause, which they didn't before. Like, I want to research like what, like maybe there are claims or somebody sued Google because maybe a child saw something that they shouldn't have. I don't know.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah, it does make you think.
So then it says use discretion before relying on publishing or otherwise using content provided by these services. So I'm wondering if that's maybe like AI assisting with writing because of copyright or what is that when ChatGPT, but I'm thinking of what is it just called in college when you're paraphrasing or using other people's.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that word anymore, but I know what you mean. Sourcing?
No, it's because you don't source.
Plagiarism?
It's plagiarizing.
I thought you were looking for a different word. That's all right. We got there eventually.
But you had me, so thanks. I also just watched an episode of Abbott Elementary. And
I love that show.
It's so good.
That's one of my favorite
Hulu.
Shows.
Yeah, it's so good. Have you watched the new season?
No, I actually didn't know it came out.
Yeah, they've been rolling them out like every couple of weeks.
I gotta catch up.
Yeah, I think it's the 3rd season.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So one of the episodes, one of the teachers, he was kind of showing his students like, hey, we have this AI program now that will read through all of your assignments and it'll let us know a certain percentage of how much was AI generated. And he was looking through different examples that he had pulled up, and he pulled up one of the students' papers and it was like 3% match. And he's like, oh, okay, you're good. But then he's like, and this is a good example of one of my most well-esteemed colleagues, another fellow teacher who responded to some of his emails or like wrote a review on something. And it was 99% match to AI generated. And then the next one was 100. So like the next scene was him calling them out being like, listen, this is not for you. This is for us to test the students. And I found out y'all were being shady.
Yeah. Oh,
and not supporting me. So the last one says, which I feel like this should be pretty obvious, but this is just where the world is right now. Don't rely on the services for medical, legal, financial, or professional advice. Any content regarding those topics is provided for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for advice from a qualified professional.
Okay, this might be a hot take right now. I'm sorry if this offends anyone out there that could potentially be listening to this ever in the history of the world. But if you are going to an AI program for medical advice, I think you need to be checked out.
I think you need to be checked in.
No, that's what I mean. Like, you need to get mentally examined. But yes, also checked in.
Just go to the hospital.
Yeah.
If that's your last resort, just go in. Sorry. Oh, that's
I'm sorry if
funny.
that's a hot take, guys.
I think that's the only take there should be, quite frankly. But sorry for all the rambling. I am curious about how you feel, just graduating last year from UMD.
Yeah.
Because you kind of experienced AI, like you talked about ChatGPT,
Yeah.
All these things that maybe assist you with homework or, email correspondence. Like, I'm curious to hear your perspective. So.
Yeah. So I only graduated last May, which was May 2023, depending on when you're listening to this. But I feel like my college experience still didn't have a ton of the AI integrated, or at least I didn't know what any of it was. But we really did use one program, which was literally my last semester, so last spring. And that program was ChatGPT, which we've mentioned a little bit earlier. In this class, which was a design class, we literally only used it to generate filler text for web design. So when we were adding text boxes, I was actually doing a website for an animal adoption center. So
I love that design.
Thank
If
you.
anybody can go check out Jen Kettner's portfolio, she has it on there and it is the cutest
Aw.
branding web design.
Thank you.
That one will always stick with me because that's what really stood out when I was reviewing your portfolio
Aw.
before we grabbed you as an intern.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's so nice to know. That's one of my favorites too. On my website, which is jenkettner.com, this is the Secondhand Hounds project, if anyone wants to know. But I did use ChatGPT because actually that's what our professor told us to use for text generation. So if anyone hasn't used ChatGPT, really, you type in a prompt, hit enter, and then it gives you a bunch of hoorah, okay? So I would type something like, hey, ChatGPT, girly pop, can you...
Hey, girl.
Hey, girl, how's it going? Can you make me a paragraph about, I don't know, the steps of adoption or something like that? Because I don't have enough time to write that shit and making a fucking website. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we would use it for things like that. And personally, I think this is a really great way of using that resource. It's definitely a time-saving usage, right? Like I was saying, I was building a whole website and I think we had 6 weeks to do it, which is kind of fucking crazy. But this is exactly why we were using ChatGPT, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think nowadays, which I'm looking back on it a year later, right? So many people are using AI programs like ChatGPT past the point of that time-saving work. There's a huge issue in schools right now surrounding this conversation of AI, copyright, and also academic integrity. I work at a university, that's no secret, and I've definitely heard some conversations of professors catching students using ChatGPT or other kind of text prompt filler AI websites for writing papers in classes, which, first of all, why?
Okay, this is my take on it.
Yeah.
Suffer with the rest of us.
Well, no,
Sorry,
literally.
You're not better than history. You got to get in the trenches and write your own fucking paper.
I agree.
You need to procrastinate like the rest of us and then stay up till 3 a.m. the night before just to get your deadline.
Literally. And one thing, this is a side note of AI, one thing that kind of boggles me is how heavy people rely on ChatGPT. I think, for example, using ChatGPT to come up with a thesis statement or an intro paragraph and then kind of rewording or whatever, making it your own. I don't think there's any harm in that. But I'm thinking of one specific example. Last year, the last paper I ever wrote will ever write in my entire life, but in college, was a 15-page paper on the Beatles and what types of drugs they did for each specific album.
Oh my God.
I got an A+. My professor loved that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm just thinking, like, how do you use AI for shit like that?
I'll take a crack at it.
Yeah.
Your AI generator would probably say something along the lines of, and then they took the psychedelic, and then they shared the mushrooms. Mushrooms are blah, 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 blah. Psychedelics are blah, 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 blah. And then I would say, Paul McCartney was born in...
No, literally.
Like, the thought process, it's so robotic. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
It is well written, but it's so well written that when the sentences that are butting up next to each other don't go.
Yeah.
It doesn't flow.
I would agree with that completely. I think that's where it does cause a very large issue. Which brings me back to the whole student conversation, right? How do we catch these kids doing it? Obviously, in some instances, it's very blatantly obvious. But in some, for maybe less important papers or like less fact-based papers, I feel like it can become a little bit harder to tell, or at least in some cases.
Well,
obviously,
right.
it's
Like what
specific.
you said is, taking the approach of they write the whole paper, let's say, and then
Yeah.
they just reread everything and then go in and make it sound like themselves and fix those things. You would never know.
No. Which
You
is
just thesaurus
terrifying.
that bitch and you say, oh, we're going to switch this word to this word because it's repetitive, or let's throw in a really shitty paragraph to kind of like balance out the really well written
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I don't like that. But like I'm saying, that's a big conversation, especially in universities right now, because if anyone doesn't know this, this might be, again, a mind-blowing fact, right? College students are busy. So they're going to use things to kind of time save, cheat their way out if they can, and focus on other things, which I get, not condoning that by any means. I do not think this is a good idea, but I get why they're doing it.
Well, and it'd be naive of us to think that things have changed since you've been in college, since I've been in college,
Right.
since my parents have gone to school or yours. I think that there's always a new level of ways to cheat the system,
Yeah.
to procrastinate and not do the work yourselves, because I do understand that college students are overwhelmed. A lot of it's is like self-inflicted,
Yeah.
because you yourself are setting yourself up for failure, because at that point you're still learning how to maybe juggle sports, a job, a full-time schedule, like how many credits you're taking a semester. Like that's a lot mentally.
Right.
You're still honing in those skills, being able to balance it all. But this just seems like such like the short way out.
I would agree completely.
I feel like you do need to suffer a little bit to get real world
Like the
experience.
rest of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, I would agree. I think going back to the whole human element thing, if you're going to rely on AI programs to write a paper for you or what have you, I don't know, you could do a lot of things with AI. How are you going to get a job and like do things at your job without AI?
I don't know. I had a conversation with somebody and they were talking about like their niece or nephew and how their first job, or like they were in college and then they got a job and they literally had emailed their maybe it was the person who was interviewing them for an internship or something, and they were like, how long is this gonna take? Like, am I gonna have to do everything that the job like requires? It's just their reality is so skewed.
That's
I don't
crazy.
understand.
That's
like
wild.
I know. And you're Gen Z?
I think.
Yeah. Because
I
you're
don't
born in
know.
2000. I think the cutoff from like millennial to Gen Z is 1997.
Oh, okay.
So you've got an old soul. I'm just saying, technically speaking.
You've got
You've got an old soul, chap. I do believe that you would be a millennial.
Yeah.
But legally
Wait.
speaking,
Oh,
truthfully speaking, you are not. You are a Gen Z. But Gen X, I think, is going to be
struggle.
the problem child for
Mhm.
the next decade or so, because they're rewriting things in a very difficult way that is creating a huge gap generationally speaking, where millennials and Gen Z, we've worked very hard to kind of take professionalism and careers to the next step.
Yeah.
That now they're coming in and they're saying, well, I can do that, but I'm just not going to work as hard. So it's setting like this really unrealistic standard that you can kind of cheat the system and still get the same outcome.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's very strange to think about all of the different shortcuts and ways to kind of get around things that we did not have when we were children.
Mm-mm.
I'm not saying we had it hard necessarily by any means because we have the internet, but also all of these different programs that are coming out that can literally like make your art or write your paper are kind of terrifying to me. But going back to the conversation of students, how do we block students from using these programs, right? Obviously, high schools and I think colleges can do this too. They can block certain websites, but that's not going to stop them from going on their phone or their iPad without that Wi-Fi or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So how do we block students from using programs like ChatGPT to write full research papers for them? How do we narrow down students that use AI versus those who don't? And should there be a punishment for those using their resources? And I'm saying using their resources in quotes, because I think that is a bullshit excuse. I'm not here to answer those questions, really. I don't have all the answers to life, which I know is shocking. I'm Gandhi, as we've discussed.
No, I know. If
previous
I
episodes.
were to look at you, I'm like a mother goddess of our earth.
Yeah,
hello.
with my pink stained pants right
Yes,
now. I have
yes.
everything figured out.
You
clearly.
do.
I'm not here to answer all these questions, but I do want to talk a little bit about my experience with AI personally and what I enjoy about a few programs, because there are some things I do, and what really terrifies me about AI, because I have something to talk about. Surprise, surprise. As mentioned earlier, I do have a little bit of experience with AI, but it is very slim by all means. I can tell you right now, I really only use it for two things when I can, and they're as follows. So number one, like Alex was talking about earlier and what I was just saying, generating text for media / funny caption ideas for work. So we talked about the caption stuff with the website. That's easy, but the funny captions for work, sometimes I work for a university, as we know. We'll just have like a photo of the snow to post so kids know it snowed on campus. And we're like, okay, what do we caption this? So we'll go into AI and put like funny caption for snowy photo of a college and see what it comes up with. Or I have a coworker who does a question of the day every single day at 3:00. And one of them last week was like, something about fitness. Do you have any fitness regimens or like tips to give us? So I put that into ChatGPT and like it just gave me the stupidest shit. And then one of my other coworkers was like, ooh, we should do this, but put like a dark humor spin on it.
Oh,
and it was
gosh.
talking about like murdering your thirst and like just stupid sayings like that.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I enjoy it for a little giggle every now and then, but
yeah.
it is very helpful, especially for like the website design I was talking about earlier and coming up with captions for photos. Number two, Photoshop. So Alex was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier too. AI tools like select subject and remove background, which those two are pretty new. There is one thing I hate about the Adobe AI programs, and it is that a bar comes up in the center of your fucking artboard, and every time it is positioned where I need to fucking click next. So I have to hit the little 3 dots on the bar and hit like exit bar or something every single time. As people who are making programs for artists, it's like you're literally making art for the artists, right? What are we doing?
Well, I find it hard to believe because I think about this a lot too. When you see graphic designers on Instagram that are like, oh, I work for Adobe or I'm associated with them in some way, and they're selling all these great things about it. It's like, why can't they be upfront honest and say like, hey, this shit pisses me off too?
Literally.
Because I guarantee any designer that goes to click on something, if when you try to go click on that item or that vector image or whatever it is, the text box, and a box intercepts your click, with things that you do not need at that current time.
No, literally.
And it's always in the way. It's never to the side. It never shows up.
It's always in the fucking center
it's
of
the
my
glitch.
art.
It's designed that way, and I want to know why. I want to know why all of these traders that are graphic designers working with within Adobe have not spoke up.
I agree. They need to be institutionalized.
They do.
In my opinion. To me, these forms, or at least the ones that I use, are pretty harmless and actually very helpful. I really only use them in a pinch, quite honestly, or like with the text sometimes if I just need a good laugh or two, you know? But especially for the Photoshop AI tools, specifically the remove background tool, that is so great. In the design world, not everywhere, but a lot of the times we call these cutouts. So like a headshot with a wood grain textured background. You want to get rid of the background, right? In the days when I first started design, you would have to do that manually. And sometimes it would take hours to do one because of all the little baby hairs, or like curly hair is really difficult because it adds texture. So you have to get like the background from behind that too. I could list a million reasons as to why that's difficult. But anyways, AI makes it really easy and quick to use in a pinch when this could take me hours sometimes. And I feel like, unfortunately, some people are using and abusing AI programs to automatically do the work for them all of the time, not just for like these quick little fixes that are harmless. I find this stupid and quite literally invalidating to humans, right? It's kind of discrediting all of the work that we've done in the last, I don't know how long Photoshop has been a thing, probably since like the 80s or 90s, but especially in the realm of art, it just frustrates me. I'm not saying I hate AI completely, but there are things that definitely make me a little bit upset. I went to school for years, and I want to further my education, which is another at least 2, if not 3 years, so I can teach design to the little kiddos. There are people out there making programs to create logos, make paintings, even like music generation through AI. And I feel like that invalidates my degree, especially my expertise, and also all of those years of training, right? To just kind of click a button, have a logo made in front of you, that just blows my little mind. I don't like that. I'm not going to come on here and say I don't enjoy looking at funny AI photo generations, especially on TikTok. I feel like I get a lot of videos of that. And I do enjoy them. I'm not going to come on here and be like, ugh, AI is taking my job because it makes a funny picture. No, that's not why I'm here. I think we need to use AI in professional settings, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sparingly. Yes.
To your discretion.
That's a good word. Thank you. But some people, of course, are taking advantage of things like this. And I think it's really funny that we're talking about AI this week. I was home this weekend, and when I got home, I was just like chilling on the couch with my parents, watching some TV, as you do when you're home. And I saw an ad on TV for Wix, which is like a website
That's
design.
what we use.
Yeah. Wix is awesome. This is no tea, no shade against them, but I don't like one thing that they're doing in regards to AI. This ad was talking about their new AI program for logo generation, which I think is cool. It's a great starting point for sure. But first of all, this irked me, especially like being a graphic designer, having a 4-year degree, and seeing that people can just do it with the click of a button. That's really awesome. It's definitely a great starting point for somebody's business, right? Especially if they're maybe not ready to commit to a full logo or branding, even if it's just like, I don't know, I'm thinking of like a little pop-up coffee truck at like a food market. Maybe this is their first weekend starting and they just want like a quick logo or something to put on a menu. I don't know. Something like that. That's obviously a very specific case, but in a pinch, I think it can be great. But is that only what people are going to use it for? No, absolutely not. They're going to see free logo generation and just run with it. This drives me a little crazy. Free logo generation. There are design firms out there, not even large ones, keep in mind that charge upwards of $1,200 just for logo concepts and like a kind of logo package. And what I mean by package is the logos, like colors, lists of the typefaces that are used so they can further use that. Obviously, there can be more with how much you pay, but it just drives me crazy. Like, we're able to charge that because we have the expertise and knowledge and training to do this. Logos are art. I don't care if you think they're not. I think they are because they are.
It's art that solves, it's a solution.
Yeah.
It's an art solution to whatever that business needs.
Yeah.
And I only want to put in one thing is that these generators, yes, you're getting the visual, but they're also not educating the client on how to use that appropriately, which can get them into legal issues, copyright infringement, because you're thinking that AI is making something for you based on a database of things that have already been done before. They're pulling. So when we're talking about the iterations and non-original ideas, that's what they're using.
Exactly.
So how do you know that you're not getting a coffee logo or a business logo that somebody else isn't using? And then now you're adopting that as your brand. You're taking it, you're running with it. And 5 years down the road, some corporate business that's been around for 10, 20 years decides to sue you because you've been using it. And that does happen. That does happen. I always think back to this one gal. She had like a Cricut business and she was doing cups or something like that, like water bottles. And she used the Disney font. And she found it online, and she was just this suburban mom. Like, she was just doing it for a little extra cash, but because she was selling it and she didn't know what it meant when she downloaded that free font, they sued her for a lot of money. And you think like, oh, Disney, why would they do that? But it's like, they don't care because that is theirs. They've spent so much money and time and energy to copyright that, to trademark that. So when they see other people, they literally have a whole legal team probably searching for people who are illegally using their stuff. So that's all that I want to add on that. But
no, I think that was really important to add. And honestly, that's exactly what I'm about to get into. We have so many years of training, expertise. Think about all the classes we took on like color theory and branding and even typography, looking at what fonts go well with each other. AI will never be able to do that. Sure, it'll give you a couple options, but it's, again, not going to have that human quality to it. And listen, I'm not going to say I'm not about saving $1. I like saving money when I can. I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing this free generation, but I think there's a lot to keep in mind. I don't want to sound like I'm bashing on people who maybe can't afford the full design services that I was mentioning earlier. It's definitely not what I'm saying at all. I think there's a time and a place to use these logo generations, especially for idea generation. I think it's great, but it's frustrating that people out there are kind of making programs to take away jobs. And I'm not saying like every single AI program is coming for my job. I feel fine in my job security. I know there's always going to be a place and position for graphic designers. There's no way that will ever go away. But it's scary to me that there's people behind these programs making it and just being like, oh yeah, people don't have to go to a graphic designer anymore. Like, you can just do it through us for free. That's scary to me.
It's like a get rich quick thing. It seems schemy. It seems like, again, it's good marketing, right? It's solving an issue for less money and less amount of time invested to the client. And what they don't realize is that they're not really getting much in return. But the company that's selling that service is getting much more.
Yeah. And again, going back on that kind of human touch, human quality to art, when I worked with Alex, I learned that both of us like kind of hiding little Easter eggs in logos, or like at least a little tidbit of some information that recalls back to something the client mentioned they liked. Or me personally speaking, I love the 60s and 70s, so anything I can relate back to that, I will. And like, I'll throw a little reference to something in there. A computer is not going to fucking do that for you. Sorry, It's not. Ever. Is a human going to know that? Like, is somebody using Wix or whatever program going to know that they're not going to get these like little secret information bits in there? I hope so, but probably not. They're probably expecting that it's going to be like a high quality logo when in reality, it's not. Another thing I think about often in regards to AI is generated music. On TikTok, especially, this is really the only platform I see it. I'm sure, is SoundCloud still a thing?
I guess.
I'm sure people have AI generated shit on there too, but I see so many versions of celebrities singing famous songs. One of my favorites is Jennifer Coolidge singing Cardigan by Taylor Swift.
Oh, God.
It's like, tickets and cars and downtown bars. That's a really bad Jennifer Coolidge impression. But you know how she talks.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, there's a lot like that. Or even in recent news, there's even predictions of new albums before the release. So this week, especially before the release of Taylor Swift, the Tortured Poets Department, she announced like the song titles, right? And there's a song with Post Malone. It's called Fortnite. People were trying to do AI generations of predicting what that would sound like. And I saw a lot of videos like this, not even just the Post Malone one, but people making AI generated versions and being like, oh, this is a leak, blah, blah, blah. I don't like that shit. Sorry. The Tortured Poets Department, at least in my opinion, is arguably one of the most anticipated releases of 2024 so far. To me, I get bugged by this because it kind of ruins the element of surprise when the album gets dropped. I don't even want to have what I think this might sound like in the back of my head, because when I'm listening to the album, unfortunately, that's what I'm going to be comparing it to, or at least maybe not comparing, but being like, oh, this doesn't sound like so-and-so's TikTok version. Like, this is so much better, which obviously it will be. But
right.
It's kind of hard not to compare the new music that gets released to these AI-generated, in quotes, concepts, right? Because that's really all they can call them. Now we're going to get into a scary little story time. I've been talking about TikTok a lot in this, but last week I got a video on TikTok when I was just like scrolling in bed at night, and this one kept me up for a while because it genuinely scared me. I got a TikTok of an AI robot. So like legit robot, it had a physical form, obviously. It kind of looked like the Avengers Age of Ultron dude.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
just like metallic. It had a face, which was fucking scary.
Wait, I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Yep.
So this robot, right, had a body, but it also was AI. So kind of like a Siri or Alexa, as Alex was talking about earlier. But it could walk around and respond to people by itself with nobody controlling it. First of all, I wrote in my notes, it literally had a body, ? What the hell? That is terrifying. But there was an expert or like a scientist, somebody that had some hand in this robot creation, speaking about it to a crowd. And in the middle of this human giving I didn't think it was a long explanation, but it could be considered a windy explanation. The robot literally interrupted the guy. I wrote out, quote, exactly what it said. Here's the quote. Spit it out, human. I'm all ears. Which, that gave me fucking chills. Everyone in the audience was like, oh, laughing, like, this is funny. If that doesn't scare you, you and I have an issue. That is terrifying. It's, you guys, if you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, look up TikTok of AI robot, and it will be the first one that comes out. It was terrifying. Like, legit, not a lot of things actually scare me. Like, sure, movies do occasionally or whatever, spooky little movies. But this legit freaked me out. I mentioned the Age of Ultron movie earlier. I haven't seen that in forever, but it makes me think of that. They like made this robot to kind of help humanity or like, I don't know, give guidance where needed. And then it tried to take over the world. I feel like low key, that could be where we are going.
Baby, it's a story as old as time.
I know.
Honestly, if you look at any robot movie, iRobot, RoboCop, and like literally anything. It never ends well. It literally has the same storyline of rogue robots.
Yes.
Taking over information, and I don't like that.
No, I don't either. And honest, I've said this probably 10 times now, but it really does scare me. I just, like you said, we've seen all these movies, all these different shows. There's one I watched recently in The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. They have an episode about that. It's like the Mandalorian and his little buddy have to go to a different planet and figure out like what robot dudes. This is such a bad explanation.
It's okay.
What robot dudes are like secretly evil and trying to like take down the planet for the bad guys, you know?
Okay.
They had to like figure that out. But nonetheless, sorry. It really scares me because I genuinely feel like this is where we could be going. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in the Illuminati and all that shit. But I'm scared for humanity.
Well, I think of people like Elon Musk, and I understand that he's brilliant, and just because you can does not mean you should, because what's so wrong with what the world is today? I feel like we could put all this extra energy into new medical devices, new things that can help kind of enhance the things that we're already doing, instead of completely reinventing the wheel to something that's really not that helpful. Yes, I understand like we're advancing in technology and in science, but to some degree it's like, why do we have to advance so fast? We can barely keep up with what we have right now.
Yeah.
And now you're going to start introducing these things. It's like our world, humanity in itself, we need to first nail down like the simple things of treating people with respect and ending racism.
I don't know, like human rights.
Yeah, no shit. Literally, we have all these things we need to be worrying about. Like, why do we need a fucking Tesla truck?
Why do we need a self-driving car?
No, exactly. I feel like that's just going to create more issues.
I agree. Also, why do we need 8 different versions of the same self-driving car? Sorry, no.
But also, like, they're ugly. You want to come up with something that's cool, new, and futuristic, make it look cool. That looks
I would agree.
chuggy and shitty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chuggy.
Which is vintage, so I'm guessing that's on the out too.
I love that word.
Oh my gosh. It's so annoying.
Anyways, that was my ramble. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk about me being scared.
Robot scared.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any closing remarks? Okay, let's do this. Gun to your head, are you for or against AI?
Like there's no in the middle?
Nope.
I would say I'm against it then.
I would too.
Look at us.
Yeah, look at us agreeing.
Do you think Alexa will also save me?
I'll put in a good word for you.
No. Idea time. When you're thanking your Alexa, the next time say, Jen and I say thank you. And just start introducing me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll say, hey, Alexa, can you make a note for me? And then say, please make this note private between you and I. These are a list of people that are safe. And I'll put you, my boyfriend's family, your family, my friend's family. There will be people on there.
No Elon Musk. Sorry.
You're on your own.
Had to say it.
You're the one who started this. You got to finish it, buddy.
I'm starting the war on AI. I'm actually not.
I'm not. I can't get on that with Jen. I'm just a girl.
Last week, I'm just a girl.
Yeah.
Last week, I said, don't get into things you don't understand, and I would agree with that.
Yeah, I don't understand this. Again, this episode was completely opinionated, and I'm sure there are some really great things that we disagreed with, but I mean, I'm fine with where we're at.
I'm just a girl.
We're just girls. Thanks, everybody.
I hope you guys enjoyed this little chat.
This little chit chat.
Yeah.
We will see you next week with another episode. We're not sure what the topic is going to be, but I think that's cool.
You know what? Even though we don't know right now,
we know.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, love you guys.
Goodbye. Good night. I hope you have a good day.
Yeah. Goodbye.